Oh, no question. 24. 26.
That's pressure.
Many in the basketball world were left scratching their heads when the NBA suddenly canceled the All-Star Game's three-point challenge between Steph Curry and Sabrina Ionescu. Last year's contest had been a success, with Sabrina getting within 3 points of Steph, which generated headlines across the sports world and gave a broader audience a glimpse of the skill in the WNBA. It also offered the WNBA visibility that it might have otherwise lacked by not being showcased on the NBA stage. But now, with the cancellation, some see it as a significant loss for the league and women's basketball. After all, just look at what the exposure from 3 dunk contest victories did for Mac McClung's NBA career. While there's nothing against McClung, his success shows how much visibility can change things. However, the argument that not participating in the NBA skills competition hurts the WNBA misses the mark. Things were hardly thriving for the WNBA before Caitlin Clark came along. For years, players dreamed of a shot at the NBA All-Star Game because the ratings were higher, the audience was larger, and it was seen as a prime opportunity to elevate their brand. But despite its reach, the NBA's inclusion of the WNBA always felt a bit like charity. The NBA didn't really need the WNBA's involvement, and that's why Caitlin's decision to snub the NBA and the subsequent cancellation of the event is so significant. It sends a message not just to the WNBA and its players, but also to the critics who try to tear Caitlin down at every turn. After what just transpired, they better wake up. Let's break it down. Caitlin turned down the All-Star Game three-point challenge for the second consecutive year. Last year, her decision was about rest, coming off a deep run with the Hawkeyes, and then diving straight into the WNBA. This time, her choice was tactical, but this had nothing to do with rest. It was an ultimate flex of her brand. Caitlin made it clear that her first three-point contest would be at the WNBA All-Star Game in Indianapolis that summer. Before Caitlin's rise, snubbing the NBA in favor of the WNBA's All-Star Game would have been akin to trading a gold bar for a half-eaten taco. It simply didn't make sense. But for Caitlin, it does, and that's because she has the power to grow her brand and raise the WNBA's profile. The proof came when the NBA canceled the event altogether. They claimed they couldn't top last year's event, but read between the lines. Without Caitlin, there is no point. This is significant because for the first time, the NBA needed a WNBA player, Caitlin Clark. Caitlin is currently one of the most influential figures in basketball. Sports Illustrated ranked her the 4th most marketable athlete in the world, ahead of Messi and Ronaldo. Even if you don't agree with that ranking, you can't deny her magnetism. She has more star power than anyone else in the women's game and the rare ability to draw in casual viewers who otherwise wouldn't watch a WNBA game. Major brands like Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, Bose, and Buick have all partnered with Caitlin. She's being approached by hundreds of brands, but she's saying no more than she's saying yes. This brings us back to the power of her NBA snub. Caitlin knew she was the main draw and decided to focus all the attention on the WNBA instead of basking in individual glory on the NBA stage. Her no to the NBA was a massive yes for the WNBA. Caitlin understands the magnitude of her influence and is using it strategically to elevate the league. Every WNBA player should be sending Caitlin flowers or at least a thank you text for putting the WNBA first. But this isn't the first time Caitlin's made a move like this. She's consistently shown commitment to the WNBA, not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. Take, for example, the Women's League Unrivaled, which pays players more than the WNBA. Caitlin was widely expected to use her influence to grow the league, but she turned down an offer that included a cool $1 million in equity. Her reasoning was simple. Caitlin is focused on the WNBA. She knows that there's no prestige in winning Unrivaled. No one will remember it. The Olympics is really the only basketball event outside of the WNBA she'll participate in because it carries legacy and prestige, representing your country in front of the world. Caitlin isn't distracted by sideshows or stunts. She understands that her dominance on the court is the foundation of her meteoric rise. While some players seek attention outside of basketball through attitude and personality, Caitlin's allure comes from what she does when she steps onto the court. In college, she didn't just break records, she shattered them. She became the all-time points leader in college basketball history, not just for women, but for men as well. She did it with style, dominating in the playoffs and leading her team to 2 finals appearances. The hype followed her to the WNBA, where her draft alone drew 3.4 million viewers. Some doubted she could perform at the pro level, but Caitlin didn't just meet those expectations, she obliterated them. In her rookie season, she averaged an incredible 19.2 points and 8.4 assists per game. She set the single-season assists record, became the first rookie in WNBA history to record a triple-double, and won Rookie of the Year. She also led her team to the playoffs and finished 4th in MVP voting in her first year. Her performance captivated a whole new audience. Indiana Fever games accounted for 45% of the league's broadcast value, and almost every game that drew over 1 million viewers featured Caitlin. Her first-round playoff games drew more viewers than the WNBA Finals. The Fever set a single-season attendance record with 34,715 fans, smashing the previous record of 25,000 set by New York in 2001. The fans didn't come to see Lexi Hull or Tamira Bonner. They came to see Caitlin Clark. Of course, there are always detractors. Some claim that Caitlin's allure and attention are based on race, arguing that her recognition comes at the expense of other players who are equally talented. But the numbers don't lie. Caitlin isn't just getting attention, she's earning it with her play on the court. Every time Caitlin says no, her brand value increases. Fans have gone a long stretch without Caitlin playing basketball, and yet they're still going wild over clips of her working out or watching football games. Just wait for the first game of the WNBA season. Ratings will be through the roof. When you have the NBA canceling events because you're not playing in them, that's power. Even Caitlin's critics are starting to notice. The same people who tried to tear her down are now acknowledging her impact. Even Cheryl Swoops, of all people, said she respected Caitlin's decision because it prioritized the women's game. It's hard to argue that someone who is setting records, dragging a mediocre team to the playoffs, and making the NBA rethink its all-star events isn't earning every bit of attention they get. But there's more. Caitlin's influence isn't limited to drawing attention, it's also drawing players. The Indiana Fever won free agency, bringing in Natasha Howard, a 3-time champion and former Defensive Player of the Year, 2-time champion and 6-time All-Star Diana Bonner, sharpshooter and fierce competitor Sophie Cunningham, and Sydney Carlson, a recent back-to-back champion who left Asia Wilson and the Aces to play with Caitlin. Caitlin, for the first time, has a powerhouse supporting cast. These players want to play with Caitlin not just for a chance to win a championship, but to be part of something bigger. Caitlin Clark is the Michael Jordan of the WNBA. The Fever are the Bulls. While rivalries like Caitlin versus Angel Reese or Caitlin versus Asia Wilson may develop, the real story is Caitlin's quest for a championship. If she can make a deep playoff run, the impact will be massive. Caitlin's championship game with the Hawkeyes pulled in nearly 19 million viewers. Imagine what would happen if she made the WNBA Finals. The viewership would be unprecedented. With the finals being extended to 7 games, there's even more exposure for the league. Caitlin Clark's visibility and success are already inspiring a whole new generation of female athletes. She's changing the narrative around women's sports and proving that the WNBA can stand on its own without needing validation from a men's league. Her success and sponsorships are a direct result of her on-court achievements, a standard that everyone should respect. By turning down the NBA and other opportunities, Caitlin is laser-focused on what will have the biggest impact, not just on her brand and legacy, but on the women's game. The ripple effects of her influence are already being felt, and youth participation in basketball is on the rise. Public perception of women's basketball is shifting. So, with all eyes on the WNBA All-Star Game this summer, Caitlin Clark is leading the charge. It's going to be a must-see event. Caitlin is not just participating, She's shining a spotlight on her peers. As they say, a rising tide lifts all boats. And if this recent power move proves anything, Caitlin is just getting started. If you're still with me, drop a basketball in the comments to let me know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.